Or are you a castaway, grasping for a handhold in a tempest? There is a tempest in me. And it will not be quelled by you, Regent.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and it's basically do or die time now for Amazon's Rings of Power, which new episode comes out tonight around 11 or 12 o'clock, depending on what time zone you're in. And there's a whole new slew of articles that are trying to cope and seethe, well, not really seethe, but essentially consume massive amounts of copium by saying that, well, even though the show is kind of terrible, diversity is good. We're going to actually talk about all this tonight at 5 o'clock on my Thursday show I do with Sydney Watson. I'm going to leave a link in the pinned comment down below. I would absolutely love to see you there live. You know, we interact with chat, of course, and discuss many other things. Also, today is National Coffee Day. So promo code HCD10 will save you 10% off site-wide at Coffee Brand Coffee. If you've been waiting to try my coffees, teas, or cocos, or K-Cups, today's the day. We obviously have our 5 solid blends. We have our limited time salted caramel, pumpkin spice, spike jack liner. Get one of each, you'll be set for fall. We've got our double caffeinated. We've got our Roaster's Choice program. We've got our cold brew bags and so much more. I would absolutely love it if you decided to celebrate National Coffee Day today by giving us a try. Now, Rings of Power, 18,700 reviews. Suspiciously, still at exactly 3.2 out of 5. Now, I've said time and time again that no matter how many times I look at most recent reviews, although today there's more 5 stars. You see this one. The show has been boring, drawn out, or the show has its boring, drawn out scenes, but I can feel something big coming. 5 out of 5. Acting 3 out of 5. CGI 5 out of 5. Somehow that equals a 5 out of 5. But you see a lot of, 1 star, boring, beautiful, original, and dull. 1 star, it's just not good. 1 star, wrote a review that was approved, then deleted. 1 star, it should have been good. 1 star, the Tolkien estate should revoke permissions and licensing for this ripoff. 1 star, horrible. Since Amazon won't let you say too much, all I can advise you is that if you love the Lord of the Rings book series or even the movies, you will not like this. But I think, and I've said this before, and I asked in the last video if people thought that the show had any chance whatsoever of redeeming itself. And most people said no. Now, there is kind of the silent group of people that are still enjoying the show for what it is. And I always want to remind people of this. If you're consuming something, whether it's a video game, a music, or a television show, and you're entertained, you win. You shouldn't feel bad about enjoying something, even if people are roasting it endlessly online. Because at the end of the day, if you like it, then, again, you win. In this particular case, though, I feel like the Rings of Power is nearly out of time. It's do or die time for this show now. We've been through 5 episodes, nearly 7 hours of show. And I mean, yes, some things have happened. They've spent basically all 7 episodes building up to this war that, with a bunch of characters that nobody really cares about. You're kind of forced to care about Galadriel because she's the main protagonist, for better or worse. But most of the other characters are completely, I feel nothing for them. And we're talking about, the early numbers that we actually have on viewership. We remember, basically Samba TV is the only thing we have giving us anything directional in terms of viewership and what people are watching. And we saw them say that 1.8 million households watched the premiere of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power during the first 4 days it was available. And we compare that with 4.8 million for House of the Dragon. Now you could say, oh, well, they had a built-in audience already from Game of Thrones. Well, certainly you could make the same argument for Lord of the Rings and the Rings of Power. We get these new articles coming out, which is suspicious. You see a lot of stuff. Warner Brothers boss is accused of fudging HBO Max subscriber numbers. We don't really know, because these streaming services are a black box. You don't really have any real semblance of viewership. So the industry kind of comes up with this amalgamation of like, hey, these are, we're taking these index numbers that kind of bring together the number of people that are tweeting about it, the number of people that are searching for it on Google search trends, the number of people that are, so we only really get these general interest numbers, which can be misleading, because you end up with a situation where you could have a bunch of people talking about a show like Batwoman, for example, and nobody actually watching it, which leads to, of course, a lot of bad decision making. Shows stick around longer than they should, longer than they rightfully should, because they see everybody, they talk about it being buzzy, but nobody's actually watching it. So there's a lot of people talking about She-Hulk. I refuse to believe that it has the viewership numbers that some of these sites thinks it does. But you see the New York Times writes an article today, about diversity. Diversely casting fantasy series like The Rings of Power isn't a betrayal of the story. It's just one step in opening up the genre. I mean, I didn't know that The Rings of Power was gatekept, given that it's one of the most popular books worldwide ever. The most well-known, stories ever. Like, I mean, it's the Bible, but it's pretty popular worldwide. It's been translated in tons of languages and all this stuff. But now the New York Times low T writer James Poniwazik talks about, the outrage that has been reserved among a loud subset of fans for the casting of Steve Toussaint, a black actor, as a wealthy Valyrian lord. This, Toussaint says, brought him blowback from viewers who see his appearance as a betrayal of the source material. I didn't see much of that. I saw one article, maybe two articles written about it. I didn't see much blowback online. Again, this is a part of marketing. Then you see, the screams have been especially loud for the diverse casting of Amazon's Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which, unlike the lily white Peter Jackson movies, actors of color as elves and dwarves, humans, and diminutive Harfoots. For weeks, disgruntled viewers have swarmed the series review page, published disdainful think pieces, and even made threats. What? No, they didn't. And they cite this article, by the way. They cite this article that just says there were threats. Nobody shared any evidence of it. Obviously, I would disavow that. It's a stupid TV show. But no, it never happened. The sudden interest in the ethnic integrity of dragon riders, elves, and fishwomen is part of a broader reaction in pop culture against inclusive casting of stories that were once largely white, from Star Wars to Bridgerton. Well, what's interesting to me is that really nobody would be talking about this if they were good programs. Do you see a lot of people still talking about House of the Dragon being like original source material? Like, faithful to the original? No. Everyone got along, everyone's like, hey, wait, this is a black guy. That's kind of weird. And then the show was good and people shut up about it. Lord of the Rings, however, The Rings of Power, has not been good. And you end up in a situation where people maybe are still talking about it. I don't really see a lot of this conversation going on about the diversity on Rings of Power anymore. Certainly we knew that the diversity was not about hiring the best person for the job. It was about checking boxes. Amazon told us as much. They go on to say, you could probably guess the reason for the different reaction. If not, see the attacks on Disney's upcoming remake of The Little Mermaid, starring a black singer and actress Halle Bailey. Using the hashtags #NotMyAriel and Go Woke, Go Broke, social media users have denounced the new depiction of Ariel, whom they apparently found more plausible as a red-haired white cartoon serenaded by a crab. Again, this is gaslighting, right? Little Mermaid is based on like actual lore. Game of Thrones, based on actual books. Tolkien, based on actual books that told us how people looked. What this author, the soy-infused New York Times article author, wants you to think about is, or wants you to conflate as saying, oh, well, it's all just fantasy, so we can just change whatever we want. That's not, I mean, it's true to a point, but let's not pretend that, like, this is just a made-up fantasy that people thought these characters were white. No, Tolkien wrote characters a certain way. He said this is how they looked. He went to great lengths to describe how they looked. And when they didn't look that way, people knew why. It was because you were about diversity. And again, show me a time when a writer's room and a casting director who were this concerned about checking boxes and the product was good. Literally, show me a single time. You know, I mean, the best argument you could make would be House of the Dragon. I mean, the best argument you could maybe put, and I don't find House of the Dragon, yes, it's kind of cringe, like fighting the patriarchy, ma, we are women, hear us roar, but like, it doesn't, they don't seem to be as obsessed with it. You see, you know, you could explain this in one word, of course, racism, and that would get you a long way. There is the Rings discourse, of course, a pejorative use of woke as an adjective, noun, and euphemism. Many fantasy culture wars, on the other hand, insist they are simply defending the authorial intent. So what they're saying here is, of course, I'm going to tell you what you think and why you think it because I work for the New York Times. I know what you've said, but I know better. I know that you're, again, that you're racist for not liking it. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's reductive, it's dismissive to actual racism, and it's right on par for what I would expect from a soy-infused journalist at the New York Times. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward so much to seeing tonight's episode of The Rings of Power. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it, you subscribe, and don't forget, promo code HCD10, 10% off site-wide. Coffee Brand Coffee. Take advantage of it today. I would absolutely love to earn your business today. We'll talk to you again real soon.